Let's talk about CSS, Cascading Style Sheets. Now, Cascading Style Sheets were developed as an addition to HTML. They expand the capabilities of HTML and allow us to manipulate and format every element of a web page. Now, it's interesting that eBooks are based on HTML, which is used to create web pages. However, the thing to be aware of is, whilst it's possible to add a huge amount of CSS formatting, styling to your ebook, will the reader, the e-reader, the device on which your customers will be reading your book, is the e-reader capable of displaying all of those definitions and styles? It's similar to email. In a web browser, you can go to YouTube and watch a video. So a web page is capable of displaying a video, but you can't view a video from an email. And the reason is that the email client is not capable of displaying videos. It has limited capabilities. Now, as e-readers develop and EPUB 3 and beyond comes into being, then more and more will be available with e-readers, and it will give ebook designers greater scope and greater possibility. But for the moment, be aware that the e-reader has limited capabilities. So whatever CSS and HTML formatting you apply to your ebook, make sure that you test it in a range of readers to ensure that it works. Now, if you're not familiar with HTML or CSS in particular, there's plenty of tutorials, free tutorials available on the internet. Let me show you W3 Schools. Now, W3 Schools is a free online tutorial that covers a great range of CSS capabilities. This is the home page of the CSS section. And you can see down the left-hand side here, we've got home, introduction, syntax, selectors, how-to, backgrounds, text, fonts, links, lists, tables, etc., etc. A huge amount of information about how you manipulate the styling in your ebook. So check out w3schools.com, and if you're looking for more information in Google, simply type in CSS tutorial and browse the results. On YouTube, there's a large number of video tutorials available. Just type CSS tutorial in YouTube's search bar and browse the results. This particular one I found has 4 parts, and the first one is applying styles. So review that and see what works for you. So let's have a look at the CSS file I've included in this template and see what it reveals for us. As we've said before, the style file, which by default is called style0001.css, is included in the styles folder. You just double click and open it. This CSS file I've divided into several elements. There's one I've called structure, typography, images, and lists. When you see a word contained within these symbols, it's a comment. It's for you. It's not read by the system. It's ignored by Sigil. Sigil's interested in these guys. Now, the idea here is that this one here in the body tag, now remember in previous tutorials we looked at the code of a page, and I said that you were interested in everything in between the opening body tag and the closing body tag. So this piece of CSS affects everything within the body tag. And what we're looking for with this one is, this simply allows all of the text and images to continue to be in one column. If you were reading an ebook on your computer and increased the size of the e-reader, there might be cause for the e-reader to split the text and images into 2 columns. So this bit of code here simply make sure that everything stays in one single column. The second entry, font size 100%, that's related to EM, which is a proportional measurement, and we'll look at how that applies in the typography section. This section, typography, is all about fonts and how they look. You can see here that I've got the heading 1, heading 2, heading 3 to 6. And so what I'm saying here is that for all of these heading types, I want the font weight to be 500. You can see here that there's some other definitions for individual heading types, but overall, I want the font weight to be 500. Now, I'm not particularly fond of overly bolded fonts. I find that the bloating distorts the design of the font. 700 in this scale would be considered normal bold. So what I'm saying with this is that I want all of these headings to have a font weight of 500. So let's look at how that works in the preview. I'll open up one of our chapters, and we can see we've got a heading 1, and over here in the preview, and a heading 2. So back to the style sheet. So if I take that up and change that to 700, if you watch the preview on the right hand side, you'll see the change. So you can see that these have emboldened more towards a more normal bold. Let's take that up to the maximum, 800. And there we've got quite a strong bold. And let's bring that down to, say, 400. And you can see that it's just a little bit above what normal text is. So you can adjust the weight of your font by using this range here. So I'll change that back to my preferred 500. So experiment with that until you get what you would like. If there's no definition here at all, if we just delete this section of the CSS, then Sigil applies its default set of heading styles. I'll undo that. Now, the second aspect of these headings can be seen down here in the individual definitions. In heading 1, I'm setting the font size equal to 2EM. Now, what is an EM? EM is a unit of measurement, as a pixel is a unit of measurement. The difference between the two is that EM is proportional and pixel is an absolute measurement. So when you set a pixel measurement, say 12 pixels or 20 pixels, then it's 12 or 20 pixels on any device, any screen size, any web page. When you set 2EM or 4EM, it's always in proportion. So the way that this works is we've set the font size to be 100%. And the underlying principle here is that 1 EM equals 12 points equals 16 pixels equals 100%. It's a little bit of a head spin, and I think the best way that you can see how it works is to experiment with it and view it on different readers and different screen sizes. It allows us to have a different EM size for each of the heading styles. So you can see that heading 1 is 2EM, heading 2 is 1.5EM, heading 3 is 1.25EM, and heading 4 is 1.125EM. So obviously heading 1's the largest, heading 2 is a little bit smaller, heading 3 is a bit smaller, and heading 4 is smaller in proportion. Now you'll notice that I haven't defined anywhere a font. And the reason is that on many e-readers, on many devices, it's entirely up to the person who owns the device or who is reading the ebook to set the font. So it seems pointless to me to try and control font styles here. I'm simply allowing the reader to take charge of that. And I'm not in any way suggesting that the font should be Arial or Minion Pro or any of the other many fonts that are available. So in my view, it's easier to simply allow the device and the person reading the ebook to choose the font they would like. So let's look at a couple of settings that we've got here. So we've got our font size at 2em. So to have a look at how that actually works in proportion, if you watch the preview over here and I change it to 4em, you'll see that it's increased 2 times and become a great large font. Let's change that back to 2. And on the heading 2, if I change the font size to 3em, you can see that it simply increases to a larger size in proportion to the heading 1 font. So by adjusting the CSS and having a look at the preview here, you can begin to get a sense of how this is going to look in your book. I'll change that back to 1.5. Now, with my heading 1, we've discussed in previous tutorials how this text is contained within an imaginary box, and outside of that box you have a top margin, a right margin, a bottom margin, and a left margin. So over here, for heading 1, I'm setting the bottom margin to be 2em. Let's increase that to 4em. Watch the preview to see the change. So here we can see that there's been quite a large increase in that margin. So again, you can adjust the margins to get the sort of space that you'd like around your text. I'll change that back to 2. Likewise with the heading 2 style. It has a font size of 1.5em, it has a font style of italic, and it has a bottom margin of 1.25. So if you deleted font style italic from here, you can see that the heading 2 style reverts to regular. I'll undo that. And we're back to italic. The margin of the bottom, 1.25em, just pushes down the following paragraph to provide some space for that heading 2 style. Same idea with heading 3. The margins are the same as heading 2, a slightly smaller font style. And down here at heading 4, a slightly smaller font style. So you begin to see how CSS allows you to style the text elements in your ebook. And the thing to remember here is that if you change a heading 2 style in the CSS file, then that style changes throughout the whole ebook. Every heading 2 style is changed globally. So this ends part 1 of the CSS tutorial.